Oh my God, I love being motivated. I love being motivated.
Me too.
I love being motivated.
Hi, I am Brett Dupree, your passionate, inspirational life coach. And today, I'm talking to you about one of my favorite personal development superstars, Byron Katie. As the champion for authentic joy, I first met Byron Katie when I was looking through audible.com. Yes, audible.com. I belong to what Zig Ziglar called Automobile University, where I would listen to 2 audiobooks a month. And as a person who thought of himself as the champion for authentic joy, named my website Joyous Expansion, I was really inspired to read this book, 1,000 Names for Joy. It's inspired by the Tao Te Ching. Her husband and she wrote it together, and it was amazing. As I was listening to this book, I thought to myself, wow, that's my end goal. This was towards the beginning of my personal development, probably the first 2 to 3 years of it, and I wasn't close to the magnificent person you see today. And when I listened to her and the freedom that she had and the love that she had, I was just mesmerized. She had so much freedom, so much love that I had to figure out how she did that. And that's when I checked out her book, Loving What Is, where she really went into the work. And the work has helped me a lot. The work is based on 4 questions. Is it true? Can you really know that it's true? Who are you when you think that thought? And what would it be like? Who are you if you can't think? I like to think the 4th question is, if it was absolutely impossible for you to think that thought, how would you be? Generally, I'm free, kind, joyous. But that's the thing. It's very simple to do. And then you do 2 to 3 turnarounds where you take the beginning statement, the beginning belief, and then you ask yourself, where are some opposites? Flip it around to the opposite, flip it around to the other, flip it around to myself. I will take you through a sampling of the work. Blah 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 doesn't love me. You probably felt unloved in your life at one point. Or blah 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 doesn't love me when blah 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 doesn't love me. So first you ask yourself, is it true? And this is the first time you give a chance to question your thought. A lot of times you have thoughts you don't question. A lot of people don't. I know I spent a lot of my times believing a lot of my thoughts were true. Instead, thoughts are generally just that, thoughts. And for the most part, it's very, very rare for a thought to be true. She says no thought is true. I could believe that. Or is that thought true? But the truth is, suffering is believing reality is different than what it is. Arguing with reality equals suffering. Because reality is. It is. You can't argue against it. It's truth, in a sense. The second question, can you absolutely know that it's true, has you question that reality, that thought again. So you take this thought that you thought was true, she doesn't love me, or he, blah 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 doesn't love me, he doesn't love me. And you're thinking about it. First time, is that true? And second, can you absolutely know that that's true? Generally speaking, for the second one, unless it's my personal experience, it generally I lose it right there, because how would I know for a shadow of doubt if someone doesn't love me, or if someone hates me, or if someone thinks blank of me? Even if they say it, can I absolutely know that they believe it? It generally breaks down at that point. Then who are you when you think that thought? And this brings clarity to how this thought isn't helping you. How this thought is hurting you. How this thought doesn't serve you. As you think of all the negative aspects of every time you think this thought, it really helps break that down. At least it does for me. And the fourth one, if it was impossible for you to think this thought, how would you be? I mean, this one can be hard. That's why I think it's impossible to think that thought helps me, because that would make me believe that my mind is incapable of believing that. My mind is incapable of believing that blah 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 doesn't love me, or blah blah thinks I'm stupid, or blah 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 thinks I'm fat and ugly. Makes it impossible. Who would I be if it was impossible for that thoughts to form in my head? And generally speaking, especially, I've done the work for years now. I've been doing it for the last 3 days. Watch my podcast 7 to figure out why. And it gets to the point where I'm loving, kind, and free. Because those thoughts, that thought can't run into my head. I'm loving, kind, and free. I can no longer torture myself with thinking that negative thought. With thinking that thought that doesn't serve me. If I'm not torturing myself, I'm feeling great. And then you want to turn around like 3 times. The beauty of the turnaround is it shows you that another statement is just as true. So what you have this path, and you're thinking this thought, and it's like spinning at a record over and over and over again. But you put a second record somehow, and it starts spinning that record, and it starts spinning the other one. And they're both there, opposite. And if you have 3, I guess I should have thought of that before I thought of that analogy, because that is hard to do, to think of 4 records, but you have other paths to go. And as you make each statement just as true, you can go down one of those other paths. She doesn't love me. She does love me. He does love me. Blah 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 does love me. When you think that thought, and you put out 3 reasons why it's just as true. For instance, how you don't really know they can, or they don't even know they love you. That's one of my favorites. If it wasn't for her or his or blah blah blah's negative thoughts, of course they would love you. Or I don't love me, which is another turnaround. Because every time you have negative thoughts, every time you spin that negative thoughts, are you being loving to yourself? No. Every time you spin those negative thoughts, are you being kind to yourself? No. And then there's others. I don't love her, or I don't love him. Turning it to them. Which is a good one, because every time you think that thought, you're not being loving to them. You're not being the loving person that you can be. The beauty of the work is it allows you to work on unconditional love. And as I strive to be a being of pure unconditional love, I have found the work to be a wonderful tool to help me when I'm stuck. Sometimes it takes me a while to remember that it exists, even though it's probably, when I think of top 4 people that I find influence me and I believe work works, Byron Katie's The Work would be up there. Sometimes when you're in the fire, it can be difficult. At least it is for me. Again, this is all a practice. I'm practicing as I'm going. I'm practicing as I'm learning. I'm practicing as I coach my clients. I get to improve. Always being, always becoming. I highly recommend her book, Loving What Is, and I thoroughly enjoyed 1,000 Names for Joy. Byron Katie has been a very big help in my life. I saw her live, and that was one of the most amazing experiences, just to feel that freedom and see how the work has helped many people, as people are getting up and talking about terrible situations that ruin their life, and they use the work to be able to get through and move to the other side. Because it's your thoughts that cause you to suffer. A lot of times you can blame other people for your problems, and blame is just creating a prison and handing the key to that person. And the work, and when you take responsibility, you're taking the key back, and the work allows you to unlock the key. See? That's how it works. You take responsibility, which takes the key back. You find something that allows you to turn the key, and one of those things is the work. I highly recommend it. Byron Katie is a wonderful teacher. I cannot speak the praises of the work even more. Check it out, www.thework.com. There's plenty of free resources on how to do the work. Buy her books. Work with me with the work. Why not? It's something I always bring up to my clients because I find the tool amazing. Go out and be great. Namaste.
JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Come and say hello to Brad Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach, good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue, I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Yeah.